Jones.
Madam Deputy Speaker, it's a pleasure to be called in this debate on household energy. I have a number of problems with today's motion, which is not a rational and sensible debate on how to manage the spiralling cost of living while recovering from the pandemic and meeting our climate change goals. This motion is designed to do nothing more than construct a misleading trope for social media. The opposition brings this motion forward this afternoon, attempting to wrestle control of the order paper, which it has no business doing, in order to deliver a blunt instrument which will not benefit those on low incomes. But it ignores its own role in the spiralling cost of living in Wales. I notice what's missing from this motion is anything about the rural cost of living, something which I am desperately concerned about. We understand that we pay a high price for the beautiful landscape in which we live, but this price is becoming unreasonable. Looking at energy, across the country, around 12.5% of those living in rural areas are in fuel poverty. The Energy Savings Trust estimates that this is in fact slightly higher than in urban areas. Invariably, we have antiquated heating systems and poor insulation, and around two-thirds of my constituents live off the gas grid, myself included.
Will the Honourable Lady give way?
I will.
And it's a similar situation to hers in Brecon and Radnorshire in my North West Durham constituency. Does she also agree with me that some of the other issues, particularly around cost and transport, also need to be addressed? And I take her point wholly that this is more. Does she agree with me that this debate today is very much about playing politics with the situation? Obviously, the government's thinking about important measures for the future, but that's not about handing everything over to the honourable member for Doncaster North and his pals, who failed to win general elections themselves.
I do agree with my honourable friend, and I find it somewhat ironic that the last time opposition parties tried to take control of the order paper was during the Brexit debate. They have no mandate for that, and they have no mandate for this. It also means that we in Brecon and Radnorshire find it harder to play our part in the fight against climate change. Many of my constituents are deeply worried about how to replace their boilers at the end of their usable lives. And so I was deeply reassured to hear the Business Secretary restate earlier today, during Bay's questions, that the UK Government is determined to support residents in Wales as well as the rest of the United Kingdom. Bayes is making £450 million available for upgrades, as well as an additional £1.1 billion for lower income households. This is the type of action which my constituents very much welcome. Having spoken with my right honourable friend, the Chancellor, I am reassured at the way in which he is focusing in on this issue of rising household costs. He is approaching it in a sensible and measured way, not with social media clickbait, but with targeted interventions which will make a meaningful difference to those who need it most. Through investment in Kickstart, around £2 billion, peak unemployment is now forecast to be 2 million fewer than previously feared. Keeping to the energy price cap, increasing the warm home discount and the winter fuel payment, these are all steps that will curb the rising cost of living. And increasing the universal credit taper is a tax cut for 2 million low-income families. I and many other colleagues on this side of the House will be meeting the Chancellor again later this evening to discuss this issue in greater detail. I'm extremely grateful to the Treasury and Bay's teams for the listening mode that they are so clearly in. Now, there are many, Madam Deputy Speaker, in this House and beyond, who often mistake rural areas like mine for extremely wealthy areas, and this simply is not the case. The cost of living is hitting hard in Brecon and Radnorshire, but it is on top of other pressures that are, I'm afraid to say, ignored by the Labour government in Cardiff. We have next to no public transport, so we are forced to drive everywhere by cars powered by ever more expensive fuel. And I do commend my honourable friend, the member for North West Durham, for the work that he has done to draw attention to this. Our broadband is slow on a good day, because funding is targeted at densely populated and, curiously, Labour voting areas. Our schools have to close and our council tax is higher because our local authority has been given one of the lowest budget allocations across Wales for the last 10 years. If only we could see the levels of investment and support that has been directed at the cities and the South Wales valleys, then our household bills in rural areas like Brecon and Radnorshire would be lower. And so, Madam Deputy Speaker, I will not be supporting the opposition's motions today. I want to see this House have a meaningful debate on household costs, one which is not motivated by knocking lumps off the government, but puts the rural poor at its centre. And I commend the government for their mature and grown-up efforts to tackle the cost of living crisis.